Before we get today's show started, I'm hearing a little bit of a feedback. Is someone's volume really high or their mic really good? It
I don't
happens.
know.
Uh,
I could mute to see if it's me.
no, I don't hear it anymore. I only hear it at certain moments.
Mm.
But anyway, we'll get back to it. So for today's pre-show discussion, I wanted to talk about the power of gaming and gaming and film critics, and like whether or not they have too much power. And the reason this comes about is because of Callisto Protocol, which
Hmm.
is the newest game out from the ex devs of uh, Dead Space before EA completely screwed them out of their entire IP. Um, and That game's been getting hammered.
Hmm.
Now, as a person who doesn't play horror games, I've watched a lot of Callisto Protocol. And like GameSpot gave it like a 5 out of 10.
Oof.
That game at its worst is maybe a 7.5.
Yeah, at worst a 7, like
Yeah,
at the absolute worst.
like and that's just if it was like me who doesn't like horror games.
Mm,
Like we're
yeah.
playing it, which is why I personally would never review it because it's just not my cup of tea. Of course I'm going to be like, yo, this is crap. I hate this. I hate the experience. I hate everything. I had 14 heart attacks in the first 5 minutes. Like I'm not, so I just want to know, do y'all think that gaming and film critics have too much power?
I'm gonna let that guest
Hmm.
go first. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, too much power is an interesting framing of the question. Do you mean like too much influence over the minds of the consumer and how they choose to play and what they choose to play, or?
I would say power in the sense that if reviewers, and this is becoming a thing in gaming, it's been a thing in film forever, but you get a certain wrong review from a highly touted or paid attention to reviewer, and your movie will flop. Like it just will flop. And I feel like Callisto Protocol is probably doing really well right now as far as sales, but I think that it's also being hurt by the fact that like every reviewer, it feels like every reviewer, even now like YouTube reviewers are all latching on to the key phrases of like IGN and GameSpot and like the bigger people where it's like they'll have a problem and now all of a sudden these people who, you know, it's almost as if like if you've listened to them long enough, they're going against their own
Mm.
like wishes for gaming and like things that are different, but now they're like, oh, I don't like the change. Like stuff like that. So it's like the power of a critic to affect how an intellectual property or a creation of art is viewed by the rest of, I guess, your demographic, whether it be gaming
Mm.
or people going to the theater.
Yeah. So this is actually a pretty cool question because just some quick background to my response. I have a master's in rhetoric and writing composition, which may sound irrelevant, but actually reviews are very much a piece of writing, and some of the same concepts you could apply to other pieces of writing, you could ultimately apply to reviews. And the one concept I think everybody needs to keep in mind as an audience member who's consuming these reviews, and this goes for just anybody who plays games to people on YouTube who cover games and use those reviews to inform their coverage. You have to understand that the rhetor is an individual with their own prejudices, their own perspectives, their own life experiences that inform how they're writing and what they're saying. And all of that kind of gets jumbled into this mess in between the transition between their mouth or their fingers on the keyboard to your eyes reading it. All not to say that you have to understand that certain people have different backgrounds which inform what they're saying. So, for example, if someone's writing about a horror game, yet they're part of an industry who idolizes AAA horror games, and doesn't necessarily pay too much attention to the more experimental traversing's of indie horror games that do a lot of things differently, they're going to have a different perspective and a different review than someone who primarily works in indie games and prefers those type of games, right? So ultimately, if people are kind of I guess, putting these reviews on a certain pedestal, you have to interrogate why you're doing that. Is it because the authority of the publisher? So like IGN, they're a big name. Am I only taking them seriously because they're a big name and they've been around for so long? Am I taking seriously because I know who the reviewer is? Chances are you probably don't. There's IGN has a circle of reviewers that keeps going round and round for each game. Sometimes you don't even know who it is, but sometimes you do, and you should probably look at that, see what they reviewed before. But like nobody's gonna put this much effort, right? So I think ultimately you need to know who's saying it and why they're saying it. What's their background? Why are you taking it more seriously than other people? And basically, what are you basing your opinion on, essentially? Are you basing it off what they're actually saying? Does this align with any type of logic that you agree with? Or are you just agreeing with it because it's a big brand, or you just like the brand and it's more familiar with you? I think that should be interrogated as an audience member.
I think that reviewers and these outlets, like these review outlets like IGN and GameSpot and all these other places, Digital Foundry, they all have much more influence on this market now than they did, say, 5-6 years ago. Gaming as a whole, especially like from the literary sense, with people talking about it all the time, especially like on social media and stuff, has grown exponentially over the last 5 or 6 years. Like, it's completely changed. Like, the console wars has grown even bigger now. You have all of these different people, like these keyboard warriors all on Twitter that people follow, that has hundreds of thousands of followers just because they follow the same ideology of I like the green box or the blue box, or the red box rather. And that has now taken an effect within the reviews. So like, a review will come out for a game and you have these hundreds of thousands of people online that's all talking about it, and they all follow the same code. Like, if one big person doesn't like it, all their followers start to rant on it as well. Oh, it's crap, it's no good, it's a flop, it's whatever. And then that starts to trend online, and you get this commonplace of, well, the game's just crap. Like, everybody's saying it's crap. And all it takes is one bad review out of 1,000. And if they pick up on that and their audience follows that one bad review, you're going to get it trending over it. Like, the influence that reviewers have now, they have to be very careful because the audience itself has become so much more picky with what they like and what they don't. It's so easy for a game just to flop instantly based off what's said online.
They're willing to put so much stock in a random person's opinion and at the same time exclude their own individual taste.
Exactly.
And going back into, what Ram was saying, it's just like you have to remember all the things that actually go into an opinion. And like I was saying before, I hate movies that are made specifically to win Oscars. Like, I don't care about The Queen. I don't care about, Seabiscuit or Warhorse or any of these. Like, I'm not talking trash about them, mind you, because every movie is someone's dream, even if they don't get to pull it off the way it didn't come off the way they wanted to because of the miracle that goes into creating anything. But I just can't watch those because my mind centers around the abstract. And so to have someone try to be so pinpoint to like history and it not be a documentary and to realism, like there has to be something counterbalancing it for me. So like when I was reviewing movies on YouTube, I would either only review movies that I like. Well, no, I got to the point where I only reviewed movies I liked. Or if I saw a movie that I naturally wouldn't gravitate to, but I was like, yo, I actually really enjoyed that. Let me go into that a little further. That's what I would do. But you'll never see me do something like I said, like King's Speech, good movie. Great by some standards. I can't bring myself to judge it because it's just not what I'm into. And I wouldn't want anyone with my tone of voice, which makes people think that I think I'm right all the time. Like the
Mm.
way I speak. I don't want anyone to think that's what they should look forward to or think about the movie. So yeah, I've thought about this on and off for years, just because of course there have been things that I love that get decimated,
Mm.
and once they're decimated, there's no crawling back. Um, so yeah. And
I
with
think
that,
what you said is
oh, go ahead.
important. Oh, sorry. Yeah, just to close off, if you want, I think transparency is key from the reviewer for sure. So like putting those perspectives and those lenses
Mhm.
for the audience up front, like you just did with how you were explaining how you review, I think is key. And on the audience side, to acknowledge those lenses exist, look for them, and understand why you're agreeing with a certain person and why you're disagreeing. Like actually interrogate that.
Yeah. Because another thing you want to think about is what other motivations does that reviewer have? Because
Exactly.
I
Yeah, that's
mean,
what I was going to go into.
I just read an interesting article, and then we'll get into this episode. But I read an interesting article where people who reviewed games for IGN and a few other companies, and all their scores in retrospect seem to be inflated. And then come to find out that after they left said publication or media outlet, they went to work for that company. And it's quite a few
Mm,
big people that a lot of people would realize, like that people would know off the
mm,
top of their head. And it's
mm.
like now they work for Sony, now they work for Nintendo.
Yeah.
So it's like you always got to think about that as well. But what we need to think about now
It's dreams.
is dreams. So let's go ahead and go through the intro. We'll see you guys in a second. All right. So welcome everybody. It's been a long time coming, but we're one away from the 100th episode. So as always, I'm Mighty Vicious here with Jamie James, and today we're joined by RammsDreams, creator of Liminal, a highly touted horror game that even Martin Nebelong said was one of the scariest
Mm.
experiences he's had on a console. Welcome, Ram, to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, I want to kick right off today. I mean, I know it didn't sound like it because of the beginning talk of the show. I almost got caught. I could have gone on another hour about,
Oh yeah.
the critics and my disdain for most of them. But while we have the reel going on, for the viewers of the stream and the YouTube, give us your background. Who are you, my dude?
I like that phrase. That's a big phrase in Liminal. Who are you? Yeah, good one. I don't think that was intentional, but you unintentionally referenced the game, which is funny. But yeah, I mean, I'm Ram. I mean, I live in Southern California. Been here for pretty much all my life. More specifically, grew up in East LA. Mexican American, if you couldn't tell. And yeah, I mean, I've I don't know. I've done a lot, I guess. A lot of schooling, unfortunately. Hate it by now. Yeah, despise it. But I'm finally done. I just finished like this past May that just came on. Did a master's in writing and rhetoric. Yeah, just it sucked. It was horrible. A lot of that stuff, those experiences that kind of I went through while doing that program informed Liminal because I was developing Liminal during that program. I think I started at the beginning of the program and I finished it just shortly after because I think yeah, Liminal came out. It's been like a couple weeks. I'm already forgetting.
It's
Like in
fine.
November, like
15th?
20, yeah, 15th, yeah. And I finished, in May, so it was like a bit of lag. I wanted to get out sooner, but I mean, finishing up like the thesis and all that, so it just didn't work out. But it was fine. But yeah, like a lot of the experiences I did in school kind of informed Liminal, and I mean that's kind of where I'm at in life right now. I'm just kind of career searching, doing some jobs here and there regarding writing, so like writing centric jobs, so like at writing centers and stuff like that. But yeah, right now I'm just glad to be done with Liminal, glad to be done with my passion project, and just looking forward essentially.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, with what it seems you focused on in schooling, like what's everybody has to pay the bills, but is game development the dream job? Or are you looking for writing a book? We got a memoir coming out. You want to go into film. Where do you see yourself going if you had 100% control?
100% control. In other words, if I had like a fairy godmother, at my shoulder, able to pull off a miracle, I'd want to do game development. Be a director of some sort after maybe some other experience leading up to that. But I mean, coming back down to reality, being a bit more realistic, I'd like to be a director of a writing center for sure. That's like probably my big goal here. So I'm just doing some project management, or I'm trying to do some project management in the meantime, get some experience there because I already have enough experience with writing composition and all that. So just moving in that direction. But yeah, I would love to be a game developer for sure.
All right, all right. So I mean, instead of the gloss over, how did you find dreams? Like, are you one of the people that came from the Little Big Planet era, the Tearaway, to all this stuff, or you saw it by accident and just happened upon dreams and was like, I can do this?
It was a little bit by accident, but it was mostly through a streamer or a content creator, if you will. They're on YouTube too. I don't know if you heard of them. Far From Subtle, uh, Video Games Awesome, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So they were covering Dreams like, man, they've been covering it since like the first trailer. That was like I don't even know how many years ago. But at the time, I mean, it didn't really seem much to me because it was just like that trailer was really abstract and kind of odd, and just
Yeah.
it looked like Project Spark. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm not that interested in this. It's just like a bunch of claymation and stuff. Like whatever. It looks cool. It's a cool concept, but whatever. And then the beta started getting closer and they started covering more, and I'm like, oh wow, this is actually really robust and really cool. And I've always been a creative person in terms of like how I like to game. So like I build in Minecraft like all the time before this, and like any other like map editor I would always use because it's just super fun. I like making like little experiences and stuff. So I'm like, oh, I'll just like check this out. I'll see like what I can make, and like maybe I'll make like something small or whatever. So I got it during the beta because it was a bit cheaper. So I got it then. And I made like some dumb crap, honestly. I made like a little it's still on Dreams. Like my first project is still there. It's like a fan game of mixing Zelda and Dark Souls and putting them together. And that was my first project. And like it started off with just like the first area, which was like just like a garden with like different elements of the Souls game and then like some of Zelda's stuff. And then I just added on to that, and I'm like, hey, I could do more areas now. Like I'm getting better at crafting these areas because the first one was crap. It was like it wasn't even. It was like the floor was like tilted or something. It's horrible. I didn't know how to use it.
Done.
It was it had heart. It had heart, but it had no technical skills whatsoever.
So this was before you realized that Dreams had a guide button and rulers.
Yeah, I did. I had no clue. I didn't even know what precise movement was. I was literally just like doing this with the controller, trying to get everything in place. And I was doing the Minecraft strategy where I would measure by blocks. Like I would measure like, oh, here's the edge of this asset. Let me line it up there, and like, oh, okay, yeah, it was terrible, horrible. It's still up there, so if you want to see it, it's really funny. but yeah, so I added to that project more and more, and eventually it's honestly, I don't even know how long it is. It's probably like an hour or 2 hours now long, I think, of an experience. Like I added a bunch of levels. I started adding like a really loose story, and started like developing the skills that I used for Liminal. And then the one big turning point for me with that project, that first Zelda Souls project, was combat. I had someone from the Dreams community actually helped me on that. I don't think they're on Twitter or any of the socials, but they're just kind of were on Dreams for a while. And they helped me with the combat and kind of helped me like figure it out essentially and actually make it like somewhat fluid and functioning. And that's like, if that never happened, I didn't know at the time, but if that never happened, I don't think Liminal would probably exist the way it does, because
Huh.
the whole combat system is based on what I learned from him, which I think his name was Mr. X Machete, something like that. I blanking on the name, but I'm sure you could find him. But yeah, that was like the pinnacle moment where I'm like, okay, I could actually create something decent here.
Yeah, there is that breakthrough moment, and then a bunch more walls, but
Oh,
you
yeah.
know
So
that
many.
you know that it's possible for the breakthrough to happen again, and that's enough to keep you going.
Yeah,
Um,
the first wall, getting over the first wall is the toughest one because that wall looks damn high, and you're like, hell
Yeah.
no, I'm not getting over this damn wall. Like I have no coding experience personally, so I'm like, there's no way. Like I'm never gonna be able to do this. And you climb, you fall down a bit sometimes, you climb back up, and then you get over it, and you're like, you know what? It's possible. Yeah, there's like 25 other walls, but you know what? I did one. I could do another one.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
which Jamie can attest to because he's working on Pitch Black, and I'm sure as
Oh yeah.
he was in the boat with me where it was like, oh boy, logic, but he's worked his way through it, and
I mean that's what the whole project was about, was to learn logic. Like, it was just such a wall for me. Like with yours, like logic was just the thing. Like I can't make nothing because I know I'm going to need logic for it, and I just can't do it. So that's why I just dive straight into Pitch Black, a game where it's just purely logic and nothing else, and that way I'm forced to climb that wall. And sometimes you got to do that to get over it, to be able to do what you want to do.
yeah.
That's a good
So
idea. Yeah, good approach.
yeah, starting small as we're capable of going,
Yeah.
like, which is the hardest thing for me personally. But let's go into the origins of Liminal. One, I would say after 2 years of game dev, like, how do you feel the reception has been? I mean, you already had the god of dreams,
Mm.
say some really great stuff. So, but how has the overall reception to it been?
I mean, honestly, it's overwhelming. Especially like with some creators like Martin, saying that it's like a horror classic. I'm like, no way. Like, no, this is like my actual first serious project. Like, no way, it's a horror classic. Like, I don't think I could accept that. Like, that's so like high of
Bro,
a praise, and I'm like, whoa. Like it's super overwhelming, and then some dreamers are saying like it's a serious contender for like imp of the or game of the year for the impies, and I'm like, oh my god, like what? Like I did not expect any of this. Like I basically made the game for myself, really. Like first and foremost, like it's my dream game. Like this is the game that I've always wanted to play, or the horror game that I've always wanted to play. So I just didn't really expect this, especially with how weird it is, because it is quite strange and obtuse and pretty dark. So like I didn't expect the reception, really, honestly.
well, JJ Novats in chat said, "Nah, man, don't be humble, embrace it." And I'm gonna go ahead and echo that same thing, bro. If someone takes the time to give it, just accept it. Even if you don't think it's right, you take it because you never know when you're gonna hear something so glowing again. So you take the
Yeah,
wins
that's
as you get them.
Couldn't agree more.
that's true. Yeah, I mean it's like yeah, I didn't mean to say like that I'm like excluding it or anything. Like it's like if I could have that framed up here somewhere, I'd put it on a frame because that is crazy to me. So like no, but yeah, like thank you. Yeah,
I'm
much appreciation there.
I'm sure if you asked Martin, he'd probably put together something for you. He'd probably
Oh no,
do
I feel
something
real
in
bad.
dreams and be like, "Hey, I redid this shot from Liminal," and then
Oh
you'd be
my
like, "How
god, that
come
would
my
be
shot
cool.
didn't?" Yeah, but then you'd look at that shot and be like, "How come Liminal didn't look like that?" No,
No, no, no,
that's
no. I'd be
You're
cool with
like,
it. I'd be
he
cool
did
with
this
it.
in he did this in 15 minutes. It took me 6
Okay,
days.
that would yeah, that would be like, oh, okay, ouch, ouch. But no, that would be awesome though. That would be so cool to see like a shot
Yeah.
recreated or something. That would be yeah. I don't even want to get hoping on that. I'm gonna kill that dream right now.
so yeah, tell us about the 2 years of game dev. Like, starting off with it, getting over the first hurdle, but where did this game come from?
This is like more than 2 years in the making, technically, because this idea has been in my head for I don't even know how long. I can tell you really. It's been. I mean, if you want to get super technical, it's probably since my childhood, because there's like stuff that I took from like my interests as a child in terms of horror, and kind of bring them all together throughout the span of my life into like one game that I really want to play, or I really wanted to play, and now I can play. So to be more in terms of stick to a timeline, I had gotten the idea to a pretty good state, maybe I want to say exactly, yeah, like 2.5 years ago, where I had basically just written everything down I had about the idea, which by the way, it was way simpler than it was now. It was not even close to being this ambitious in the beginning. The original idea, to like clue everybody in, is it was just essentially PT in terms of the looping hallway, but extended to an entire commute. So the commute would loop. So you would go through the exact same commute every cycle, and there would be about 3 or 4 cycles of that commute, and things would warp and change, and you would kind of get detours. So like you would go on the subway, go towards your home, but one day the subway's broken down, so you got to go to the service area to get it up and running, and then that becomes a whole ordeal with like scary things and monsters and creatures and whatnot. So it was very simple, super, super simple at first, but I essentially just wanted to combine all of my horror inspirations. So the primary ones for this one was like Cry of Fear, liminal spaces, evidently, and just liminality in general, not just liminal spaces. But maybe we could get into that later. Silent Hill, of course, and at the time that was it. As the game progressed, I got a bit more of Resident Evil in there, particularly Resident Evil 7 with the combat system, the blocking system in particular. But yeah, at first it was a very, very basic concept that I essentially pitched to Matizel, which legend, by the way. I don't even know. I'm surprised he agreed to work with me, honestly, because he's such a legend. And all I had at the time to my name was Zelda Souls, so I'm very surprised he agreed to work on with me. But yeah, I pitched the idea to him. He liked it, and he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I'm like, "Awesome, cool." So I just essentially started giving him the ideas I had for the environments, and he made the assets. Um, and the assets are incredible. The game wouldn't exist without them. Genuinely, it just wouldn't exist. I can't do them. So, hands down, the assets are like probably the most vital thing to the game, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, he made the assets. We started putting together, and he did some environmental design as well. But we would kind of cooperatively make the areas together, especially the earlier areas like the offices and whatnot. And then from there, I mean, I took from what I learned from Zelda Souls in terms of the combat, and I'm like, you know what? Let me try this. Let me, because like I could make enemies decently at that time. Like I can make them work well and function well for the most part. But I had never done first person combat at all. It was just not existent for me. I never even tried it. I don't even think I used a first person puppet before. This was the first time, but I used Intra Attack Out's FPS advanced template, which is that was my lifeline. That was
amazing.
It was amazing.
It's a blessing to the Dreamiverse.
Huge, but that's an understatement. It's a blessing on the highest level, because that game would also not exist if not for that template. That is such a huge resource. But yeah, I started learning the template, trying to learn the ins and out of it, and that happened over the course of like a year, getting the combat to where I wanted it to be. It's still not perfect. I think that's probably my biggest regret, is some of the things I did with the animations on the puppet. I wish I changed that before, but at that point where I noticed it was bad, it was like it's too late, because like I'd have to change so many things, and it was just way too much work for something that wasn't gonna have any monetary value. So I'm like, I can't justify me putting more time into something. I'd rather just get it finished and just live with the regret. Fine. But yeah, it was just building block per building block. So it was a new wall, and then I would overcome that wall, another wall, and then overcome that wall, and eventually I just kind of tied it all together into one experience, essentially.
Indeed. So, was there, or is there anyone else on the team that you'd like to throw a heads up to? Like,
Yeah.
was it a bigger team, or?
It was a pretty big team. I would say, primarily speaking, it was me and Matizo at first for like the first year or a year and a half. Then after that, Drinkwater 200 kind of hopped on to our team to do some of the lighting in like some of the story-driven areas. So the apartment complexes, and you could tell because the lighting is like vastly better than the rest of the game. So like the apartment complexes, the apartment itself, areas like that, story-centric areas. He did the lighting for that, and he also did some assets that were really helpful as well. So like the water that you see in terms of the end of the game when the apartment complex is flooded with blood and all that, and some of the water previously in one of the rabbit encounters, all that's him. Great looking water, it looks awesome. So he helped a lot, and then everybody else, it was more kind of they kind of gave their contributions to the project, which was awesome. I think the primary one was Grim Pinata. He made some really great creature designs. We collaborated on that. Like he was awesome. I basically just gave him my ideas, and he's like, okay. And then he took like about a day, and then he come back with these amazing designs. I'm like, whoa, that was fast. And then he had like a backstory for them. He had a name and everything. I'm like, wow, this is my own Masashiro Ito, man. Like this is awesome. This is great. So yeah, he was great. He helped me with the monsters. He helped with animations as well. So a lot of the rabbits animations, which look awesome, he did those, and they look great. Typhus gave the rabbit. At first, it was kind of more of a abstract, very dreamlike, purely just white rabbit that just looked really cool. But I had actually changed it a bit with the help of my friend, which we could talk about later. He's not a dreamer at all. He doesn't know dreams at all. But he's just an artist, and we've known each other since like high school. And I'm like, one day I just asked him to play test. Oh yeah, sorry.
This is the friend from the gig clip that she sent.
Yeah. This is the friend from the gig.
It's funny that it came up because that clip is actually what's on right now.
Oh, that's funny.
Super coincidental.
Yeah, he's playing guitar. Yeah, he's the guitarist. That's his band. So, but I just invited him one day over to my house and be like, hey, can you play test my game and just tell me what you think about the story? Like, help me make it, make sense, essentially. Because at the time, it was very abstract, given my David Lynch inspirations. It was, pretty out there. So I'm like, hey, can you help me make the story make sense, right? And he's like, yeah, whatever. So he came, he played it, and he was like, yeah, he helped me with that regard. He helped me, like, kind of get the story a bit more direct and concrete. But he also helped me with the rabbit, because he's like, I like the rabbit, but I'm not scared enough. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, it just, like, it looks really cool, but I think it should match the other creatures, which are a bit more realistic. The other creatures are very unsettling because they look like a real face. It's very small. The details are very small, and it looks like a real person from a distance, which is weird because this is a video game. Like, there shouldn't be a real guy's face in there. So he's like, I'm like, all right. So we basically just made it more fleshy. We made the eyes smaller, and that's pretty much it. Like, that's the two changes that we made. And it made a difference, because like that thing before, it felt kind of sadistic almost in its character. Now it feels like I don't even know what it like emotionally confuses me even. Like it's very disturbing, that creature, man. That shit has given me nightmares, like 100%, not even exaggeration. Like I've had nightmares from playtesting that creature.
Well,
it was
terrible. You've done a good job of making a horror game if you, as the creator, are having nightmares about it. That's a checklist done.
That part scary. Is the only one. Yeah, that's the only part that scares me, honestly. That I don't like playing that through that part.
So while we're on the subject, like, what was the inspiration with the rabbit then? Like, is there an origin story of why you chose a rabbit for this, or like what's the story with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a weird origin story. So I was actually inspired greatly by a clip that I saw on Instagram, because I follow a lot of like dark art and stuff, and like cool horror art and all that on Instagram. And I came across a video. It wasn't even like a horror video, I don't think. It was like a nostalgia video of some guy's like old childhood recording of like his dad in a rabbit mask, like a cheap like 80s rabbit mask that looks actually very like pretty much exactly how the one looks in game. He's just wearing it, and he has his kid on his lap, and they're doing like this weird like birthday recording or something, and it just looks really uncanny because he's like in his work outfit, like an office outfit, like a white button up and slacks or whatever, and he has like the sleeves rolled up. It just looks really uncanny to see this guy like have it's just
Very
really odd.
unsettling.
It was really weird. It was like I don't even know if I would say it's unsettling. It was just very bizarre, and like it stirred like a lot of ideas for me because I'm like, like this parental, because like rabbits, obviously you could make a connection to like parental figures, and especially like I think in Lynch's work he has like the short The Rabbits, right? It's like a family unit in the couch. I think they kind of represent a family unit in some sense.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. And I'm like, let me roll with this, right? So like, because at first the story was already centered on Pater, the person you play as, and he was, the main thing is him being a father, or at least, well, I'm not going to say anything just in case people haven't played it yet. I won't spoil it. But the whole thing is centered around his fatherhood and his son and his wife and the whole family unit. So it's like, I want to take this kind of memory that I just happened to be posted on Instagram as like this cool art thing. And I kind of want to incorporate that into Pater's character and, of course, by proxy, the design of the rabbit, given that they're very connected, him and Pater. So, yeah, it's basically a warped version of Pater's image on the couch as a father. And that's kind of where that inspiration came from. Um, and you'll notice in the chase, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been chased by a parent that's angry at you as a kid, but it's fucking scary. It's scary when they're really mad.
Yeah.
Like it's like a game of cat and mouse. Like it's very unsettling, and especially if it's a guy who's really mad, like your dad or an uncle or something. It's quite unnerving. So I kind of tapped into that. I think there's that meme, right, where it's like it's all fun and games, and they're chasing it like and they go hoo, 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 like when they get close, and then you just freak out. It's basically I wanted to evoke that feeling and connect that to fatherhood essentially. So connect the horror gameplay with the themes of the story as well. So that's basically where the rabbit came out. That's why it's kind of sadistic. He feels sadistic the way he's like chasing you and always after you, and all that.
And where else did you draw inspiration from?
Regarding the rabbit or just in general?
No, just in general for the game.
Kairo. Kairo's a huge, huge inspiration. The Japanese horror movie, probably like one of the first, I would say, huge, like high-profile analog horror movies in a sense. Technically not analog since it's a computer screen, but the way it presents it is very analog. Like if you wanted to replace the computer screen with a like CRTV television, it would still work in the sense that the aesthetic and the atmosphere would still function really well. So I consider it personally an analog horror, despite it being digital. But that was a huge inspiration. And you can see that in the room itself. So like I call it the Forbidden Room. It's not really has a name in the game. It's basically the one where the couch is, and you see the body on the wall, and you go in there with the TV, and you find the gun there and all that. That was like straight up from Kairo. The room where I forget the character's name, but the guy like basically, he's in that room, inspired by that essentially. And yeah, I mean the general aesthetic, that green hue, I really like from Kairo. I kind of took a lot from that as well. I also like, okay, this is my favorite part of Kairo. They use audio in a really awesome way. They do a scene. It's kind of like a song in a sense, the structure of a song where they do a pre-chorus in a scene, but only using audio. So they use a bunch of commotion. They use a bunch of dialogue. They use a bunch of drama in some sense. And there's a bunch of audio that you're kind of being bombarded with. And they also have like a little line of static underneath that. So you're used to having all this audio. And you're hearing this, you're like, okay, I'm accustomed to this. And then all of a sudden, boom, they cut, hard cut, silence. And it's just an image of something extremely unnerving and someone going like, or some crap, and it's scary as hell. It is so unnerving. Like, oh no, it got under my skin super bad. So that was like, I love that, and I took a lot of that audio design and used it in Liminal, especially with the face at the end of the hallway. You'll see that 100%. You'll hear some static at the beginning, and then it cuts out, silence, and then you hear the whisper. So yeah, Kairo's a huge inspiration. Obviously, David Lynch. Some of the endings or some of the levels in the ending are kind of my room on the Black Lodge, and like kind of like that Twin Peaks style.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Not a Twin
Okay,
Peaks fan, I see.
okay. Let's break away just for a second because I want to ask because you have that you have that rare glimmer in your eye when speaking about these inspirations where they come from, and so I want to speak to someone who's truly just zeroed in with these references. What makes Twin Peaks good? And I,
That's a
and I
good question.
and I really want to, and I ask this because it's a predecessor to a lot of shows that credit it that I do like, but I've tried to watch Twin Peaks probably
I see. I see what
like
situation you're in.
3 times, like as far as like giving myself time, being like I don't really like this, not enjoying it, I must not be in the right mindset, let me come back.
Can I ask you how far you got?
I believe I got 5 episodes in at
Okay,
the
that's why. That's what I
okay.
think. That's why. So
Does
if
that
I
make you
could, oh yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead. Finish your thought.
because I have this thing. Because if you're about to tell me, like, oh, but if you don't make it to episode blah blah blah, it's just not gonna make
Sorry.
sense. Okay.
Mm,
Because people
no,
who say that make me so mad. Because I'm just like you're
that's not what I'm gonna tell you.
excusing this time.
That's
Go
not what
ahead.
I'm tell you.
Go ahead.
Here, this is what I'll tell you. It's fucking cheesy. It's cheesy. It's melodramatic. It's if you're looking for like a modern serious show, it's crap. But here's a big but. A lot of that cheesiness and if you will, melodramatic kind of drama show, mystery type stuff. It's quite intentional. I'm not saying that it's necessarily like the most subversive genre you're ever going to see. Like you're not going to come out at the end of the show and be like, "Oh, I see now why we did all that in the beginning seasons."
Mm.
The beginning seasons exist on their own. I think if you're not going to enjoy them, then that's fair. Like you're not going to enjoy it. But I would say like they're very aware that it is melodramatic and it is drama. It's not necessarily a satire of the shows around that period, but it's more so using the genre of melodramatic shows and mysteries to subvert your expectations at the very end, which the ending is really fucking cool. It's really cool. If you just owe it to yourself to skip if you want. If you're not enjoying the first seasons, just skip it all. Go to the last 2 episodes. Trust me, you're gonna want to watch it. Trust me. The last 2 episodes are really damn cool. Just visually. You don't even have to understand what's happening. It's just awesome. But yeah, I mean, if you're not going to enjoy the first seasons, if you're not invested at that point, then you're probably going to have a really hard time reaching that point. So that's what I would
Yeah.
say to you.
Yeah. So uh, I've tried so often and I want to like it because I like a lot of things that were born of it. I just every time I try to sit back and watch it, I've run into a wall, and I'm just
Yeah.
like I this could as you're telling me like you are kind of saying it, but you're saying it a little differently,
Mm.
But
I'm
it's
saying if
like
you're not going to like it, you're not going to like it on the end of
yeah,
the day. I'm just saying you like the ending is very different from the beginning, is what I'm basically telling it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. We're getting close because I just well, I wouldn't say just started, but I'm on a rewatch through X Files. Just as something I could throw on every now and again, try to get through the whole, what, 11 seasons now? 12 seasons with the new ones that everyone hated. I can't wait to see those. But yeah, I just keep trying to, because as soon as you said David Lynch, I was like, oh no. We're because
We're going into Twin Peaks
yeah,
territory.
exactly. Like and it does fit. Like with the visuals I've seen of Liminal, it does fit, but it's just you know we were talking about Mulholland Drive or something. I'd be right there with you. But as soon as I hear Twin Peaks, it's become that thing in my brain. So this we're in the midst of that time period where I'm taking my time away from it, get rid of all my notions, take what I've learned so far from watching, and be like, prepare yourself. Because I've watched a lot of stuff and I've watched a lot of crap. However, I say crap with quotes. Once again, as we were talking about, my opinion means nothing. But it's just I wanted to love it so much. and my trouble with getting through it is like disheartening to me. But alas, back
I
back
think
to
that
what we were going through.
I think that's everybody who watches the damn show. Honestly, it's a emotional roller coaster in terms of quality. It kind of goes up and down all over the damn place. Even as a fan, I'll say that. Like that's 100% true. Um, even as someone who liked the first season, the second season, ugh, that's just ugh.
Ugh.
But yeah, ugh. But yeah, I mean, if Twin Peaks is not your style, I will say I took other inspiration from like Eraserhead. I don't know if you're a fan of that, but yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a lot of Eraserhead, which is funny because I actually never intended to reference Eraserhead. Um, but my the same friend, Liam Two Hands, as his stupid name goes, the guy who was playing guitar in the clip, yeah, he told me he's like, man, this is just a Eraserhead. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. What the hell? Like, I didn't even intend that. I'm like, man, it's probably like some weird subconscious, like, I guess spewing of like all these themes that I've kind of consumed over the years. So that was
Yeah.
kind of cool. But yeah, not my intention to copy Eraserhead there.
Hey, I'm sure that the person, well, I'm sure that they'd be like, oh, if they ever saw the game, we'd be like,
Mm.
oh, that's for Monday. And they feel honored, you know?
Telling me to get Lynch to shout it out on his YouTube
Yeah.
channel because he does like a daily weather report on his YouTube, and I think he was on Cal State Long Beach's like radio show the other day. He was like giving me the weather on the radio. It was like the most comical thing on the planet. I was laughing my ass off during that. So I was yeah, I'm gonna go ask him to shout out the game.
If you don't mind me asking, as far as Liminal goes, like, was there ever a version of the game where the protagonist or main character didn't have a weapon?
Yeah. So like when it was just a commute, there was no weapons at
Hmm.
all. Yeah, combat was not a thing at all because I didn't know how to do it. Essentially, the the vision was always to have some type of I guess you could say risk or danger because
Mm.
this is not, even though it's called liminal, it's not a liminal space game in terms of genre. Um, because I don't know, and we could go on a whole rant about liminal space games, but I think liminal space games as a genre are actually they're cool. Don't get me wrong, I like them, but
Mm-mm.
they're very they define themselves by what they're not rather than what they are. So they take away aspects of an existing genre and then run with a more stripped down version of different genres. And I'll give a really quick example. Silent Hill 2, take away the combat, take away the monsters, it's a liminal space game. You see how I only had to take away things to get there?
Yeah.
Mm.
That's essentially what my premise is. So don't get me wrong, they're cool, I like them, but that's not what liminal is as a genre. It's very much a survival horror game with a bit more of like a very chunky cinematic intro, basically.
Okay. Well, I guess all that's left, unless you have something else specifically we want to go into, uh, we want to let you bask in the, how would you say, the accomplishment of this. But we also have to know, are there future plans? Is there a follow up? Or, is there a different idea you've been cooking since birth that you want to get out into dreams now that you have a little bit more of a grasp? Where are we going in the future?
Good question. Couple directions I can go. First one that I think I'm probably pretty set on going. Probably sometime next year. Like maybe around the Impies, most likely, since I think Liminal has a fair shot of getting nominated for a couple things. Um, I wanted to do essentially like a DLC, if you will, for Liminal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So nothing story wise. I think there's nowhere else to go in the story, in my personal opinion, that is interesting enough to warrant some type of sequel or even some type of story based DLC. I don't think it's really necessary. I think the story is pretty concluded as it is. So I essentially just wanted to add extra modes. So I really wanted to do like a survival mode. Um, I also wanted to do some like hardcore difficulty settings. So I wanted to make essentially like a hardcore mode for the campaign or the narrative. Because as it stands as a survival horror game, it's actually quite lenient. That was mostly for accessibility in terms of players. Like I wanted everybody to get to the credits essentially, or at least most people to get to the credits. Um, if it was up to me, I'd make it a lot harder. It was harder before it released, but alas, I gotta I want people to experience it. So that's why I made that decision. But as a compromise, I want to add that hardcore difficulty setting for the hardcore gamers amongst Liminal's fan base. Yeah, so essentially, yeah, just doing that, kind of package it in a type of director's cut, kind of, if you will, and it would give me the opportunity to use a lot of content that we couldn't use in the final game, and there is quite a bit, especially in terms of enemies. So really want to do that, get my hands on that. Regarding, oh yeah, go ahead.
I would say just as an idea, because of what this form of like from the imagery I'm getting of the game, and you saying there's no real thoughts of expanding the story further. This reminds me, in ways of have you ever seen Cloverfield? Okay, well, the reason I like Cloverfield as a what I believe to be an achievement is because they set a world within a world where a completely other movie could be told within the same setting. And that's what I think of when I think of the videos I've now watched of people playing this, where it's like this space that you're moving throughout. You an update or sequel, if you will, could simply be someone having to go back through the same thing and maybe even just find extra rooms or something, or things that in sections of the main character where the main character may get hurt, or something screwed up happens, like you'd see the remnants of it as opposed to being the person that it happened to. It's just made me think of that when you said that there's like that. I automatically see it in the realm of like Cloverfield, where it's like you could tell a story about a completely different set of people, but they're in the same area, in the same space. And that, but anyway, that's just my brain working on stuff.
That could certainly be the case. I think the only thing is with Liminal is that the narrative is and the environment, as a result, is very tied to Pater and the main character. It's very much a part of their subconscious, essentially. So, it's essentially their dreams. It's very much a part of them. I think the only way I would do that is kind of like mirror Silent Hill 2 and do like an offshoot with a secondary character that's part of that dream. Maybe, but right now I don't really have any like super clear ideas regarding that, so not necessarily in the works. But I do have future projects planned. I say planned, all weird because you never know with life. So
Certainly
may happen, may not.
Well, before you get going,
may not.
World exclusive. Spill it. Spill everything so we can just want it.
Reveal. Yeah. No, I don't have a trailer. Sorry, Jeff Keighley.
Well, guys, I have The Rock here with another energy drink if you need it.
Gillette Fusion. Buy now. All right.
All right.
We'll run an ad.
But still, give us something. What's this other idea? What are you working with in concept?
Of course, I got a couple. So first main one that's more likely to happen is essentially a collaboration between different horror. I'm putting this in quotes. Horror, weird, obtuse dreamers, if you will. So some people I'm thinking of are like Spineblood, Tapio X, people like that.
That was actually going to be my question, if you'd ever consider working with Spineblood because of what.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot. Yeah, I love his work. I've been a huge fan of his work. And yeah, we were talking about making another game together too, but I don't know how far that's gonna get, but we'll see. But yeah, like for this project, it would be like a collaboration between a bunch of horror creators and whatnot. And I essentially want to make kind of like a lost tapes type style of game where instead of necessarily like video recordings and like found footage, it would essentially be dreams. So like different dreamlike settings, dreamlike scenarios compiled into one experience in this kind of anthology style of a horror collaboration.
Hey, Jamie, what does that sound like?
Oh, is it? Is it?
I've spoken about it on the show before, but like that's one of the main things I started and have little pieces of. It's called Dream Samsara. And it's literally about this guy who's going to sleep, and through his dreams, we see all these different things that start to stream, like kind of pull together as an anthology. But yeah, it's yeah,
Just the
it's
horror
just
version.
yeah, the horror version, which you're not going to see me make.
Definitely not.
That's not my passion. But there, yeah, it just reminded me of that, and I love the concept. I love people doing things with it. I love the anthology when done well, and not the latter, like VHS movies, which make me so upset because the idea is still great, but what's being done now it saddens me. It saddens me.
No, yeah, I definitely mirror that sentiment. But regarding the other project I had in mind, I don't know if I'm gonna do this one in Dreams. I'll be honest, because it's even more mature than Liminal, I would say. So I don't know if it will fly in terms of moderation. But essentially, kind of wanted to make a Hotline Miami inspired game, but in first person, and kind of taking from the "You Were Never Really Here" movie, that style of vigilantism and this kind of interrogation of violence, which Hotline Miami also does actually, and essentially putting that into like a psychological action, slightly horror game, stuff like that. But yeah, it would be pretty brutal. I'll be honest, it would be pretty brutal and dark. So I don't know if it would fly
Well,
on Dreams.
that's a good question. If this is sort of the route that you want to go, like 'cause it sounds like that's where you want to sort of lead to, is get into that true horror experience that you could create and what you want to do, but you're kind of feeling restricted because of the moderation within Dreams. Have you ever considered moving to like a traditional engine to be able to create the true vision that you want to create without those worries of restrictions on moderation?
That almost happened to Liminal. Yeah. So
Did it? Right,
during
okay.
during the I think it was DreamsCon, but not this one that just passed. It was the one before that. Actually, the demo was already ready for Liminal. It actually released. I had released it back then. It's like about a year ago or so, or a little over now, year and a half ago. And I had submitted it for the DreamsCon for that year, and unfortunately, it didn't get in. And I was like, oh, what happened? Because I honestly kind of crunched for it, so it was like I was a little mad because I was like, man,
Yeah.
oh man, like I went through all this. I'm like, what, like what the? So I was like, oh, I just reached out. I'm like, hey, wait, like, what happened? And it was a moderation issue. So there were some things that were kind of, in partly this is like definitely like my like a something that I didn't account for because liminal story is very symbolic and it has a lot of imagery that I expect the audience to piece together themselves. I didn't really expect that there would be vastly different interpretations that would be taken as fact. So there was a lot of comparisons to like snuff films, stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, that's not what I'm trying to go for, like at all. Like, there's none of that. There's no like, no, shut that down, because I'm like, that's not what I'm going for. But of course, like it was kind of hard to say that without saying it literally in the actual piece of media. But
Yeah.
because it was such a symbolic story, I really couldn't in that sense, or at least at that time, I thought I couldn't, and I was crunching. So whole cacophony of things. But yeah, essentially, just didn't get through, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna release this game, and like nobody's gonna see it. You know what I mean? Like it's just gonna be kind of there or whatever. But I kept trucking on, and thankfully it worked out. But yeah, I was 100% just considering like quitting, honestly, or just
Wow.
even taking it somewhere else, and just being like, hey man, I'll put the demo out and that's it, and then I'll just take the rest of the idea and finish it elsewhere. Essentially, that was definitely a consideration, because I'm like, well, like even though this is a game for myself, I do want people to experience it, and it's like it doesn't feel like, honestly, I would rather it go out into the wild and get massacred by nature and just have it die on the road somewhere, rather than it being put on the road intentionally to die, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather it just kind of let nature take its course, essentially. Even if it's going to get less players out there in nature, outside of the Dreams ecosystem, I don't mind because as long as it's not, being as long as I don't feel the pressure to change it in order for it to live in that
Yeah,
ecosystem.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's important to me.
Do you have experience with traditional programs?
This is my
No.
first go in with game development in general. Yeah, I didn't know any piece of code or anything about anything, really. So it would be a whole learning experience to transition, which is fine. But I think the biggest hurdle for me transitioning is the lack of collaboration amongst creators around there.
Mm.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure it exists, but it's very difficult in comparison to Dreams, where I could literally just be like, "Hey, I liked your creation. Well, I'll add you on PSN. Let's work together." You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah.
Um, in other engines, I feel like it's going to be a bit harder. Don't know, haven't tried it, so I can't really say, but that's what I'm anticipating.
So let me ask you because this has come up quite a few times, and while we've never been able to get, well, while we've never had follow up from Typhus and others who create more mature visual pieces, is this something that you think Dreams needs to readdress?
100%. Yeah. So I think I've seen people kind of suggest that there be a mature section in some way of moderation. I know. So, like, I mean, here's the thing. I think ultimately, if it was up to I think they'd be fine with it. But I don't think it's ultimately up to them. I think it's up to Sony
Mm.
because the whole rating system is probably what's keeping them kind of shackled here.
Mm.
Um, and at that point, I can't speak on any of that. I have no experience with any of that. I have no insider knowledge or anything. I don't know exactly what needs to happen for that to change. I'm sure there's talks in regarding that. But I mean, I would be 100% in support of it because I think there's a lot of creative endeavors, a lot of creators that are going to be pushed away from that. And I don't like the excuse that limitations create creativity. Sure, they do. But if I shackle you and don't let you touch the controller, you're not going to make anything. So there's a limit to that, and you have to define where that limit is. And I think this is beyond that limit. I think moderating these type of creations to this extent is beyond that limit, and I think is constricting creativity more than it is giving way towards limitations through creativity through limitations, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Well, let me ask you as a follow up to that. Um, have you ever thought about taking this story out of the medium itself? Like a short film, Liminal. Like, would you have interest in that as a writer?
It's funny because Spine Blood actually suggests that I make like an ARG of some kind with Liminal.
Hmm.
So like use some of the footage and some of the concepts in there to like make a video series essentially. I think that's a cool idea. I might do that if I ever have free time, but I gotta like get a camera and get like a decent setup and all that to get
Yeah.
that going. But
Yeah,
I'll consider it for sure. I mean, it's not going anywhere, so maybe one day.
yeah, and yeah, yeah. I did want to know if you had any previous experience because with a lot of these things, I usually tell people when it comes to monetization within Dreams, and I tell people there's ways you can monetize. It just restricts what medium you're shooting for in the end. Because, if you could make said series, but make it out of actual clips of what you've already done in the game, takes away having to use the camera, but allows you to have a video series. Or you could just rework it to it easily because you already have the settings and everything. So it's just like, yeah, dealing with that as a way to get around being trapped within the limitations of Dreams, the shackles, as you put it, of what you can do with Dreams, and putting it like less relying on will this be turned down and more so, well, it won't be turned down over here with this, and that is a video series done using Dreams, but to the same effect with most of the work already well done. Yeah, it could be definitely an angle to take this, and but with what the hurdles you've jumped in making this game, maybe you should start out and give a try with just Blender because it's definitely the easier of the outside programs, and there's a lot of things you can do with it even with footage that you take from this.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's all up to money. It all comes down to money. So I don't really have a PC that could probably do anything right now. So got to save up for that and all that. Definitely considering it though, and for sure with the video series, I think if I wanted to make it, the ideas that I had would probably involve some angle of live action, at least a little bit, that I wanted to explore regarding, uh, especially if I'm going to make it an ARG. I think I want to do something like that. So yeah, I mean, just gotta save up, then I'll start creating some more stuff.
yeah. Yaffer says in chat, where should the line be for mature content so that Dreams doesn't get a change in rating past teen? When an age gate work for mature content? I'll let you take that.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, I think the line that's set right now is actually pretty well in the limitations of not exceeding the teen rating, which I think that should be moved first and foremost. But within the limitations of that, I think what MM has been doing so far in terms of my experience has been okay, because Liminal is very like, I think it's at the edge of that line. It's like one step from falling over, and being into the whole like getting moderated and whatnot. So I think where it's at now with Liminal is good, because I was able to go and explore some very dark themes and dark realities within Liminal that I don't think, if I didn't clear up previously, I don't think they would have flied necessarily. So I'm very grateful that I was able to reach out to MM and basically be like, "Hey, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's okay. Can you give a warning here?" And like, "Oh," I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And that was fine. That was good to me. I wish that was maybe part of the publishing process rather than me having to like reach out personally. I wish maybe there was some way of doing that within Dreams itself rather than having to go through like Twitter and whatnot. But I am very grateful that it did happen and it did work out. And I think the line as it exists now within these what I presume to be larger limitations of Sony, I think it's okay where it is now. But ideally, I would love for it to be much more open, and much more transparent as well. Because I think before I was able to talk to anybody at MM, the guidelines were very confusing. I was like, wait, but I could show like there's a monster in here that's literally like, it's like there's like there's a bloody umbilical cord hanging out and like kind of trailed in blood going across the floor. That's okay, but I can't show like, I can't insinuate anything regarding like suicide, even though Disneyland does it in the Haunted Mansion. Like, what? Like, like what? Like it's really confusing. I'm like, what's okay and what's not? So I think that should be transparent as well.
Ninja says, my only fear of a separate mature category is one cuss word, one blood stain, slightly mature tone, etc., getting you thrown into a ghetto with truly disturbing stuff.
I think it's a funny presumption that it's going to be a ghetto.
It is. It's pretty rough. But he says, no shades of gray. I'd personally rather Dreams just relax a little, ... quote, online interactions not rated. Most movies now, unless they're like super disturbing horror movies, can fit in the PG-13 rating. And I feel like that's where they need to be in gamer rating, where it's like PG-13 used to be you couldn't curse, there could be no violence, even if there was no blood, like you could, you just really had to watch yourself. Now PG-13 encapsulates about 70% of what R used to be. And I think that's a true progression, because I mean, all you have to do is be around kids, and I mean kids, for a little while, just a few moments, and you'll see that they are way above where we used to be, like growing up. As far as, I mean, maybe not as, well, I don't want to say anything because everybody's maturity is different, but on a whole, the grasp of how much stuff that they've mentally, I guess, calculated is a lot more than what we had growing up.
Yeah.
So it's like, it makes sense that, okay, well, while coming out of the 80s, people were a little afraid of gore being too much. Well, now, it's 2020. Kids are like, that's boring. Like, it's like that thing that used to scare people, 30 years ago. They see that on the way to school, on YouTube with a supposedly kids channel. Like, they see all this stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah. I don't know if, I don't think it would get you thrown into a ghetto of truly disturbing stuff, but I don't really see a downside to it, even if you were.
I don't even think it would be a ghetto. I mean, they've already done it before with the I think it was, wow, what's it called? I always blank on the name. The Halloween event that they do, All Hallows Dreams or whatever. The hotel one, or it would look like a hotel. It's the one with the elevators and you go through mazes and all that. They already did as like a scarier section where it's just an overlay that's like, this is scary, this is mature or whatever. Do you want to play? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, cool. No. Okay, cool. It just has to be an overlay that you click. It doesn't have to be like a specific section that you're like ostracized to or like you're put into. Maybe if you want to consider thumbnails, maybe. But then you could just have like a mature rating on the side or something.
I kind of like the idea of being ostracized though. Because in a way just because in a way that's a marketing point.
Yeah, you're catering to a very specific
where it's
audience.
It's like, you can like dreams, okay, but are you ready for the stuff we do? Like,
this is the cool version of dreams.
There's where us grown-ups it's where us grown-ups play, and then there's the rest of the dream. Like, I wouldn't want anyone to ever say that actually, but I could see it being a thing where it's like, okay, the cool kids table. It's like, I wouldn't want someone to actually ever say something like that as if to create like a divide within the community itself. But the idea of being in this, okay, there's this, and then there's,
this.
And then there's, okay, well, you're going to the theater, you might be going this. We got a little more to offer in the themes version. Like in the themes that we're going to cover, because I do think that that's super important. And now that I think about it, the idea of not being able to do or address certain themes is the same reason. I know this is going to sound like it goes off script, but it's the same reason that I like my superheroes being older.
Okay.
Now, let me address this.
Yeah.
I'm working on a video right now for my YouTube called How Old Are Your Superheroes? And what I'm addressing in it is the fact that for one of the things I really liked about Marvel in the beginning is that you had actors that were at their earliest in their late 30s. And you had actors who were already in their 40s. And you had actors like Robert Downey Jr. who, if you follow movies at all, know that man was blacklisted and pretty much out of Hollywood before fans and David Favreau were like, he is Tony Stark. And the idea of having an actor that isn't just some young heartthrob, the person that you put on screen is like, they just look good, but they also have age to them. It allows a writer to address themes that are believable.
Logan.
Yes, Logan. Perfect example. Where it's if Logan was played by, and I'm not talking crap about Robert Pattinson, but if he was played by Robert Pattinson at the age of when he first went into Twilight, you couldn't believe a lot of those themes.
Yeah.
And so it allows you to address something more, because you're able to basically go deeper into the human experience past good, bad, win, lose, that whole thing. So, like, that's how I'm viewing this whole other mature label in Dreams, where it's just like, if someone willingly steps into it, which is basically the same as signing into, accepting the user's agreement, the terms of service, then there's really no danger. The person knows what they're going into, and it's not like somebody's not going to get it elsewhere. So you're just limiting your own community.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure if that wrapped it all back around, being that
Oh,
I
good.
kind of
Oh, it did, yeah. Yeah, it
okay,
did.
okay.
No,
So
yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, that's why it kind of frustrates me when people make that whole argument that limitation breeds creativity, and it's like, yes, but you're not being specific enough. What types of limitation are you referring to? Is this a type of limitation? Can you justify that it is? I would say it's not by so many different angles, and I think yours is probably one of the most compelling ones because it's like, yeah, like this wouldn't harm anybody who's already consuming other things, yet it would help others who want to consume these more mature themes and dreams. It thrives, or it lets them thrive as well. So it's like it's a win-win in terms of community. I think it's all ultimately up to the whole logistics side of Sony and whatnot.
yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean that some of the rage that I've seen because of this limitation on certain people and what they want to address, I think it's something that does need to be addressed. Like they need to address it sooner than later, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, they have a whole bunch of other stuff to deal with right now too. So
Yeah, they got the big two, right? Multiplayer and exportation. That's the big
Oh
two right
god, they
now.
are the big two, aren't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and we won't start that up here.
No, not today.
Not today. Not today. Not. Maybe we'll pick back up on that around episode 130.
Yeah, we've
130,
worn
I
that
think.
T-shirt for far too long. We need to let it sit out and dry for a bit, I think.
Yeah. So, uh, it's me, Juvie. Hey, what's going on, man? Welcome. Ninja said, "Babyface teenager Logan will get 30 years out of this franchise." I'm completely happy with the realization that sometimes people just need to go. Like
Yeah,
I
I mean,
don't care.
can we just
Like,
appreciate like
yeah,
how great Logan is? I know we're going off topic for a moment, but my god, like that film is just perfect.
I have
Like,
I'm of the belief that Fox didn't actually know. Like they filmed two movies, and like Fox saw one version, and then they slipped the one that everyone saw at the last second because I cannot. Huh?
They pulled a Hideo Kojima with like
Yeah,
PT.
yeah,
yeah. Because I mean, you look at, and I've talked about this countless times, but Fox was notorious for ruining their own products. Like for being so hands on, like WB, being so hands on that they just didn't let people create. They had this thing of like, well, this is what we need to be successful. And whoever created that metric checklist was wrong. But you look at Logan, and it's honestly unlike anything else that they ever let get out of their doors except for Deadpool. And I would say
yeah,
it's even darker than Deadpool
yeah, 100%.
by a long shot. And you know, it's yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, speaking of things in around that realm, like Sony needs to learn the same lessons when it comes to their live action superhero takes because they make a lot of the same mistakes that Fox made. And they really do. And I'm sorry, I know we're on a PlayStation podcast, but y'all know me. I say what's on my mind. Like Sony makes the same mistakes. So now their animation division, oh, leave them alone. Let Into the Spider-Verse continue doing what it's doing.
Mm,
Do that. But as far as their live action goes, they make the same mistakes as Fox, and they need to check themselves at the door. They really do. So anyway,
looking at you, Venom.
uh, you know, there's a reason. There's a reason they made a deal with Spider-Man going back to Marvel. It's because they literally could not make. They could not stop themselves from just digging a hole for the
Yeah,
entire IP.
just destroying it. Yeah, they just can't help themselves. They just
Yeah.
love to ruin it.
And so if
And
somebody from PlayStation or Sony happens to be watching and you're like, man, screw this guy. Like
yeah, please
I-
come to the show. I want to hear your opinion.
I understand, but I have one thing to say. Stop trying to be cool and tell a good story. That's all there is to it. Superhero movies aren't a genre. That's it. And the main problem Fox had, and that Sony has in their live action, is that they treat superhero movies like they're a genre. That is not the case. Every scene in a bad superhero film that is terrible starts like this. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if? If that's any part of your writing process, stop. Just stop. That doesn't work for superhero films. Every character fits within a genre that already exists. Now it's time to tell a good story with it. And yes, we can go back to my weekly bashing of Venom, where
we're in the same mind with Venom. It's disgusting.
Yeah. So, but really, that is the problem with most of these people who fail at these superhero films. And I continue to call them superhero films because people will die on a hill telling me that that's a genre of movie. And I just don't get it. I call them small brains behind their backs. Anyway, the point is that let's go ahead and get back to the last final topic, which is our extra topic, as we like to do now. And it's about the video game awards, which are tonight.
Yes.
And do you have any predictions of what we have in store? What's going to win Game of the Year, which we've already addressed multiple times, but I'll do it again.
I'm not interested in...
Yeah, that's right. You know what? Everybody go out and play Liminal right now. This guy's earned it. He's earned it. He's earned it.
I just beat Melania yesterday.
You have done something that I have not.
Oh my God, it was such a journey, man. Like, oh man, I had a whole party assembled because honestly, I tried to do it by my best self. I'm like, no, hell no, this is not happening. The first stage is easy. Second stage, hell no, man. I could not do that. I could probably do it now after I've learned it, but
yeah.
Hater, man. She's such a cheater. But whatever. Yeah, I had like a whole party assembled. I had like a cleric, which was really funny. All he did was heal, which was hilarious. So like he would heal for the foul dance or whatever the move's called, the bullshit move where she just 100 to zeros you.
Yeah.
He would just heal us through that. And then I had this other guy who was like a guts type guy. He had like a big, ultra great sword. I had one too. So we were just taking turns staggering her. And like we eventually got it. And I was like, oh man, I haven't felt that way in a Souls game in a long time where my heart is like bumping. Because like, geez, man, that was a hard fight.
I always tell people the most underrated aspect of Elden Ring is the fact that you can have co-op.
I wish it was seamless. I wish it was seamless.
I wish. Well, that's the thing, and maybe it's just the games that I've chosen, but I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. Games that are developed in the East seem to always have a convoluted matchmaking system. I always go back to Monster Hunter World. Like, whoever came up with the rules for how that co-op worked should be shot in the face. And
figuratively.
Maybe. No, it's simply like, are you guys familiar with how it worked?
No, I don't know.
Okay, this is how it worked. You could play with a friend, but you could only play with a friend if the mission that you were currently doing didn't have a cutscene or had a cutscene that the other person had already seen. But if the mission had a cutscene in the middle of the mission where there's a cutscene, the person couldn't join until after that cutscene was gotten to.
There's just no point. There's just no point.
I might be taking back my statement on the figuratively.
It's pretty annoying when all you want to do is run around this world and hunt dinosaurs with your friend. Now, as you get past the campaign and you get into the end game, which is just a free-for-all punch monsters in the face, then yeah, you can run around freely with your friends. But that going through that first section where it's just like, oh yeah, man, come on in the game. It says I can't. Oh, it must be a cutscene. Let me get through the cutscene. I still can't. crap, I got to take this monster by myself. So then you start beating up the monster, and then another monster comes in, and it's a cutscene. It's like, can you come in yet? No, I can't come in yet. Okay, let me keep going. That is...
Just kills the vibe.
Yeah, it really does. If all you wanted to do was jump in and play with a friend, why do you make people jump through such hoops? My biggest problem with the Elden Ring co-op is the fact that playing with your friends means being invaded by sweats.
Oh.
Being invaded by sweaty blood build boys or mages.
I actually don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind that as much.
I do. You know why? Because every time someone jumps into my game and I'm playing with a friend, they run away. That's why I hate it. No. The person who invaded to fight runs away. I've actually chased someone around my game for 40 minutes.
No. Oh, no.
And when he joined, I was in front of the door that I wanted to go into to continue my game. So I'm like, yo, instead of going on and continuing this game that is a masterpiece, I'm stuck chasing this dude literally around the lands between because he jumped into it. Like, you'd think he'd be like, oh, well, he has 2 or 3 people here doing whatever. Maybe I'll just find somebody else. I'll disconnect. No, they make you chase them around. So now
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like it should be seamless. You should be able to walk through the door and get the hell out, and then you get kicked out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my criticism. Like I'm okay with invasions. It's just like, why are there fog walls every damn time someone else is in my game? Like I could see the area. We could walk there. Let me go there. You know what I mean? Like that's the most infuriating. Like I can't go to Jarburg with my homie, bro. Like what the hell? I have to go down there.
Go to Jarburg.
Yeah, like I want to visit Jarburg. I want to chill with the jars with my homie, and I have to go down myself, summon. Get them in there. I don't even think you can summon there, actually, now that I think about it. So they don't even let you. They don't even let you, man. Nah.
And then there's well, Yoffer said, oh my God, I hate that. I just want to play with a friend. Yeah, me too, man. It's probably a level balance thing, but still. It's the way they do it, because this is the other thing they do. If you've beaten all the bosses in a specific area, you can no longer summon friends there.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's crazy.
So if you beat the area boss, you can't summon there anymore. And
I mean, there must be a reason for that, though, surely.
Well, like the primary purpose for summoning, in their eyes, is to beat the boss. But like, I don't think that's what it is anymore. This is modern gaming. That's not the case. It's not Dark Souls 1. It's not Dark Souls 1.
Yeah.
Which is why you can't drop high-level items for noobs to pick up, because then they'll thrash everything in their world. Yeah. Like, well, no, you can still drop things.
Yeah, you can still drop.
Yeah, you can still drop weapons and like clothes and shields and stuff. You know, whether or not they'll be able to wield it properly, that's something different. But
there's already a system for that to keep them from using it. You have to level up.
Yeah. So, anyway, I think that might be what he was saying. But anyway, yeah. So,
what do you expect then at the Game Awards? Like, what do you expect? Any big reveals like that you didn't think would happen, or like shock announcements?
Bored. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of announcements, a lot of cool announcements. You know, we already know pretty much that I do believe Death Stranding 2 is going to be announced.
Yeah, Kojima is one.
I really don't want it to be Death Stranding 2. I want him to do. He said he was working on like an original horror game. What happened to that?
He's working on
a bunch of stuff.
But that's
I want it to be that. I don't want Death Stranding 2. Death Stranding 1 was good. I don't think it needs a sequel.
I think it's going to be an offshoot. I think it's going to be like a side story built off of Fragile. But
that's what I was gonna say. I don't think it's gonna be like a direct sequel. I reckon it's gonna be a spin-off, which is fine. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind like a Fragile story. That would be cool.
But
mechanics are gonna change because she wasn't a courier. She was just on like.
So it could be good. It could be
different.
The more widely accessible game for people, which will be interesting. But yeah, Kojima Productions at this point, especially because they built everything for Death Stranding already, then they probably got 3 people working on working on this offshoot, because I believe he's working on 3 games currently.
Yeah,
was the last report.
We know for a fact that he's working with a game with Xbox. He's working on a game with Sony, and then another game, but I don't know if that's multiplayer or exclusive. I don't know, but he's swimming around 3 projects at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
I know Jammy's going to be happy because it's pretty much, if it's confirmed that Final Fantasy was it 16?
16, yes.
Yeah. So he can weeb out on himself with a gunblade or something.
I tell you what, if 7 Rebirth shows up, I'm gonna totally weeb out.
It's gonna show up.
I don't think so. I don't think 7 Rebirth will be there, but if it is, you'll hear about it. You'll hear me from America screaming.
Yeah,
so.
all I'll hear is I'll be outside just hanging with my wife.
And you'll be like, oh wait, yep, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth's on the show.
I'm just gonna hear just a subtle across the wind. Oh, what the hell was that? Oh, it must have been Jamie.
It was Jamie.
So
it's true.
So I, as far as announcements, I would hope to see either an actual gameplay trailer for Insomniac's Wolverine or Spider-Man 2 unveiling that it has co-op.
I don't expect to see anything big from Sony or Xbox, purely because of the whole thing with the Activision thing that's going on right now.
No, Xbox is definitely going to bring it.
I don't think
definitely going to bring it.
I don't
Starfield
think so.
is there. I want that Elden Ring DLC to be announced. I know they just released the Coliseum update, which is cool, and they did it for free. And most people are like, well, this means they're not going to do anything but there's one glaring detail about the Coliseum DLC that's weird to me. It's completely PvE focused and only creates issues for PvP focused, and it creates issues for PvE.
What are the issues?
They did a bunch of nerfs because of like the last update was to balance each of them individually, but in this there's some new balance they did that shifts things in PvE, and some of it not for the better. But I still think there's an area for, well, that's what the sweat bros, the ones that carry half a cup of water in their taint from all the sweating they're doing, that's for those bros. They can hopefully do that and not invade my game now, which I'll just love if that's a byproduct of the Coliseum DLC. But that still leaves a place, and there's more than enough lore for, them to put out a DLC. So if they hit you with the free joint, and then they said, yo, but here's the paid one, but this is what we got for you, they can have my money.
The Coliseums were just cut content. So all of it was already data mined like a couple months ago. Like, I don't think, and this is systems from like DS3 and even DS1. So it's the same system. So it's like, I don't think this is any evidence that there's no DLC in the works. Like, it's very natural that this would have happened. But I don't see the argument.
With the huge success of Elden Ring, they would be stupid not to do a paid DLC. Like, they're literally printing their own money at that point. So I reckon it's 100% gonna come paid DLC.
Yeah, the only one we didn't get was for Sekiro, but didn't really.
Did need it.
It makes sense.
They
were making Elden Ring.
Yeah, it's Elden Ring. They need that money. They like that money. They're gonna do it.
As far as Duckonomics, saying Destiny 2 does that all the time, and that game is perfectly balanced. Duckonomics, don't bring up Destiny 2 on my channel. No, I'm just playing. For those that haven't been around or that haven't been with me for a long time, there was a time where Destiny 2 was literally just me just being enraged with Bungie for Destiny. You know what? No, don't start. Don't start.
No. Here's the thing with Destiny 2, right? Story, fantastic. Gunplay, really fun. The way that they actually do their seasons and like the mid campaign stuff, like when you're not got a campaign to do and you're just doing the mid season stuff, is
Don't do it.
It's just
Don't.
awful.
Jamie, don't do it. Don't get me started.
Come on, take the crumbs. Take the crumbs.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna say that if you play Destiny 2 as a gamer, you have no. How would I say this? I don't want to be harsh.
Brace, everyone, brace.
I'm not gonna say it.
Yep.
I'm just not gonna say it because because you're egging me and you're getting me upset and I'm not gonna fall for it.
We'll leave it.
I'm above it.
Let's leave it.
But I'm not above it. But
How about that Halo 5, guys?
I'm sorry. How was that? What?
What about that Halo 5, guys?
Oh my God, that's another sore spot. Halo in general is now a sore spot. I just.
Oh, come on. We're torturing him now. Let's leave him be. We're torturing him. He's going to pop
What's
soon.
another series? What's another series that's gone down the gutter that he was a fan previously?
You know what what I don't have high hopes for, but I do hope is coming. You know what? It plays into the Video Game Awards. I would like to see them announce and actually show Splinter Cell. I don't think they're going to.
No,
but that's something that I would be pleasantly surprised to see.
Haven't they
with hopes that it could be good?
Haven't they gone back to the drawing board with that?
No, they just unveiled like 2 weeks ago that they are working on one, and they released like art, like concept art for what the direction they're moving in. But you know the what was it called? Dark Echelon. Or Black Echelon, Black something. That Splinter Cell game is still by far one of the most entertaining co-op experiences you can have. And I just want to see more co-op, as I've constantly complained about in gaming. I don't care about multiplayer personally. I just want online co-op. An actual campaign that's been specifically crafted to tell a story at high fidelity, but I get to play it with my friend. That's all I want, gaming. And you just
gaming
because it's really outside of certain people doing it. You know, that's why outside of certain people doing it, us getting like It Takes Two every now and again. Like the fact that people are creating these super sprawling, I've complained about it enough. You guys know what I'm gonna say. Like you create these super sprawling worlds and it's like no one at the table literally says, oh, hey, we spent all this time doing all of this, making this game look so beautiful and the world so expansive. What if we didn't make the player run across it alone? Like, like that's it's just
less money. That's what it is.
See, but it. You mean less
not
money
as much
to implement
the
control?
Exactly. Well, it would make more money to be online, is the thing, because you could sell battle passes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and I'm just not a fan of that. As a matter of fact, that's a surefire way for me to not buy your game. Like it's EA, as you know, really it's EA, Activision, Ubisoft. They haven't gotten my money in like 8 years now. And it's because it's like, yo, if you're going to do these things, then you need to put out a higher quality game. Like you just need to put out a high quality, and they're constant.
So you haven't played Jedi?
I did not pay it. I did not pay for it.
Oh, okay.
But
you played it.
It was lent to me. Okay. Because I don't give them money. And the only exception to this was the newest Call of Duty, which we talked about because a friend literally pulled the friend card on me and was like, you don't play games with me, to which I said, it's not my fault no one makes co-op games anymore. But he pulled the friend card on me and we had that whole thing. I put the poll up on whether or not I should actually get the game, and ultimately I swallowed my pride and decided to be there for a friend. But that's the only reason Activision has gotten any of my money, and that's $170. And that same friend was like, oh man, get the battle pass. No. They got $70. What I get for $70, we'll see. I'm not giving you more money. I'm not. I hate it. I hate everything. Anyway, the point is. So yeah, is there anything else that you'd want to go over before we close this out, Rom?
I mean, thanks everybody for the support, man. It's been incredible. It's been insane. I'm glad everybody or most people are enjoying the game. It's definitely close to my heart, so it means like the world to me to see people like praise it and see people that are fans of it. That's like insane to me. So thanks so much, and thank you guys for having me on the show. Like that,
no
this was
problem at
awesome.
all.
This was awesome.
Hey, you had fun? You had fun?
Yeah, 100%.
Mission
Okay.
successful then.
Yeah, that's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear. As I told you, I'll have this thing where I just always think I'm boring people. I just always do. But with that, make sure if you haven't played Liminal yet, log into Dreams, play Liminal, at least put it on the play later list and make sure it's the first thing you see when you sign in and go into the Dream search, okay? So there, get that done. Play Liminal. Go ahead, hit them up on at RammsDreams on Twitter. Let them know your thoughts. Tell them everything. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, but have a suggestion as to what could be better, that's good too. Constructive. Because if you approach my boy on a negative tip and I hear about it, I'm coming at you in not so polite a way. So keep it real. All right. Y'all ain't gonna be talking bad to my boy out here. Anyway, I digress. Play Liminal, show love, and force his hand into making moving up his timetable. But Jamie, you got anything else you want to say to the people? Jamie, don't forget to do the jam.
Yeah, that's what I was good. That's what I was going to do.
Okay, I was just making sure, baby.
All right. Okay, thank you, baby.
Dad are arguing. Please save me. They're arguing, please.
So this is episode 99. So everyone should start, if you are doing anything for the jam, whether it be a game or a short film, to start wrapping it up. What was the date again? My mind's going blank.
It's gonna be tomorrow is the end date.
Yep, there you go.
Tomorrow. So we'll be searching the Dreamiverse tomorrow. Don't forget to put a
hashtag MIDP100.
Yes.
In your title, so that we can find it. So we're basically just going to go onto the Dreamiverse and just search hashtag MIDP100, and anything that comes up with that, we know that it was made for the jam. So make sure to put that in your title. If you don't want to release your dream publicly, then you need to send it to both myself and to Will in Dreams so that we can play it. But it'd be easier if you release it publicly, so we can just go through the Dreamiverse and just search for it and find all the content that way. It'd be much easier for us. But yeah, so tomorrow's the deadline. Get it all done with whoever's working on it. And if you have made something, thank you very much. We really appreciate you taking your time out of whatever other project you was working on to do something for this jam, to add on to the 100th stream. And yeah, that's everything I have to say for today.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take a quick peek here at Dreams and see who's streaming.
We have Red is streaming.
Red Sakatsu.
Yeah.
Let's go with
is that Kebab Simon? I think is Kebab Simon and Crash Landon 12.
Je fais un petit décor. Okay. Let's go with. Let me see here. Let's go with Crash Landon 12. Right. Because I've never seen this person.
Yeah, give some love to some new people. I haven't seen Crash. I've never heard of Crash Landon 12. I'll have to check them out, see what they do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We could all meet someone new today. Crash Landon 12. There we go. And other than that, Rom, tell them where they can find you on social medias.
Yeah, it's basically just at RammsDream or Ramstein53452 on Dreams itself. That's pretty much it. That's all I'm at.
Right,
All right.
nice and easy.
Keep-
Well,
yeah,
go
keeping it
follow him,
socially
guys.
right.
Go follow him.
And we will catch y'all next week for the 100th episode. Don't forget, use that hashtag MIDP100Jam in the title of your creations. We'll be looking for them tomorrow. We appreciate anyone who did anything for it. We're not looking for like 100 submissions.
Well, just a couple would be great. Just
Yeah.
to show on the show next week.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool.
And with that, peace, everybody.
Bye.